Hello once again, readers of good books. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my white room. This week I am reviewing for you guys a book which has become very, very popular over the last year or so, and it is John Green's The Fault in Our Stars. Now, going into this book, I'd heard a lot about it. I knew that it was one that girls are very interested in, just for the fact that it's a love story and it's also a tragedy. I thought it was going to be kind of just a lovey-dovey story. I didn't really know a whole lot about it for a while. I think when I originally heard about it, I thought it was like something talking about like pop stars or just famous movie stars or something. But it's actually a story. So I went into it fairly hesitant. I didn't really know what to expect, and I came out of it really liking it. So since the majority of you watching this have probably read The Fault in Our Stars, I will be talking about the book very openly, including spoilers towards the end of the review. So if you have not read The Fault in Our Stars, or if you don't want the movie spoiled for you, which comes out in June, probably don't watch this until you either see the movie or read the book. Hazel Grace is the main narrator who we follow in this story. She is a girl who has been diagnosed with a form of cancer, and it causes her lungs to fill up with a liquid, which obviously makes it hard for her to breathe. And so every so often she has to go to the hospital and get her lungs pumped out of the water, and she has to use an oxygen tank to breathe, and it's just a very bad situation. When we're introduced to her, she is kind of just living life to the dullest extent possible. She just goes to these group therapy sessions, and then she takes some college classes at school, and then she just lays around the house and watches America's Next Top Model with her mother. So it's not really terribly exciting, and she just kind of is going about living out her days until the cancer eventually takes her. And then one day at a support group, she notices a new kid named Augustus Waters, and he is the second main character of the story, and he is the love interest of the story. He very instantly has this kind of cool person demeanor. He doesn't really care about a lot of stuff. One really unique trait that he has is that he'll take a cigarette, he won't light it, but he'll just stick it in his mouth. Just the fact that he is so close to death, but he's not choosing to allow it to take him, and it's really a neat quality that he has. One thing that I really like about Hazel Grace, because she is the one narrating this, is that she's a realist, and for a large extent of the novel, she doesn't want to really get close to anyone besides her two parents. She knows that she is a grenade, or at least she sees herself as a grenade, someone who, if she gets too close to someone, she's just going to explode and cause their world to crumble, because she doesn't want anyone to fall in love with her. And obviously in the story, which is a love story, this happens. Augustus Waters and her eventually become good friends, and then they develop a relationship later on in the story. And it's just seeing these different factors come into play in terms of her questioning what the end game of this whole thing is going to look like. And it's tragic once you get to the end. Once you hit the last 100 pages, it's very difficult to stop reading, because the chapters get a little bit shorter and the story becomes a lot more intense in terms of wondering what's going to happen. The characters, really well done in the story. Just the different interactions that they all have and the different relationships that are throughout this book are really interesting. I think Hazel Grace is one of the most unique female characters that I personally have read thus far, just because of her mentality about the whole eventually going to die thing, and it being a lot sooner than everyone else. I think that's really admirable, and something which doesn't really happen too terribly often. Augustus Waters is a really interesting character because he himself has been diagnosed with cancer. He has fought it and won, and so his perspectives on everything are coming from someone who has made it out on the other side. And it's just kind of an interesting situation with that. All the other characters in the story are really interesting as well, especially the author of An Imperial Affliction. He is a very interesting character, both when they meet him and also when we get to the very end of the story. Speaking of the end of the story, I'm going to talk about the end of this book right now, and then I will touch on the themes a little bit as well. So just know that if you're not finished Fault in Our Stars, this is where spoilers are going to come out. So yeah, know that before you continue watching. So about 2/3 of the way through the book, roughly, we find out that Augustus Waters, his cancer has come back. They are in Amsterdam at this point. They have met the author, and he's a douche. Eventually, we find out that he has his cancer coming back, and it's all over his body. He's not going to survive this, and it's very unfortunate because this is a guy who I think the majority of the people reading it for the first time thought he's going to be the one who survives. Maybe the narrative will be taken over by him once Hazel dies or something. But no, he's the one who ends up dying in the story, and it's a very unfortunate matter. We see him kind of degenerate in terms of his bodily abilities very quickly after Amsterdam as well. He has to undergo experimental chemotherapy. He becomes very tired. He's sleeping a lot. He can't really eat unless he's going to puke up the food later. And just a bunch of these types of things. Eventually, his aspirations for wanting to live life out to his fullest, do all these awesome things, make his life stand out amongst all the others in the world, something that everyone, I think at least, wants to have happen to them. He realizes that it's never going to really happen to him because of this, and he dies shortly afterward. Obviously, this really affects Hazel because she always, like I said earlier, she thought that she was going to be the one to die. She thought that Augustus was going to be the one giving her eulogy, and instead it goes the other way around. So it's really tragic. The remainder of the story ends fairly well. It wraps up a lot of the plot line. We get to see Van Houten kind of reveal all this stuff which has happened to him over the course of his life. We get to see why he was such a jerk to these two people when they came and visited him, and it's kind of a heartbreaking thing, and you kind of are left with the hope that maybe he'll get his life back in order, but at the same time we see him choose to take another swig of the alcohol instead of leaving it by the curb. So that part of it is kind of left up in the air. In terms of the very end of the story, she ends up finding the eulogy that Augustus wrote for her, which he sent to Van Houten, and it's very touching. I'm pretty sure the end of the film itself is going to end with the actor who plays Augustus doing a voiceover of this monologue, and so I think that'll be a really interesting effect in the film itself. And so it ends on a good note. The only thing is that it kind of, for me at least, ended kind of like an Imperial Affliction. I want to know what happens with Hazel Grace. I want to know how much longer she survives, if maybe her cancer gets fully cured by some miracle, or if she just survives for another year and then ends up drowning in the liquid which is flooding her lungs. These are the types of things I like to know. I found that to be kind of a small irony in the story, just because for a large amount of the story, Hazel and Augustus are trying to figure out what happened to the characters at the end of an Imperial Affliction, and yet Green kind of did the same type of thing to the readers at the end of The Fault in Our Stars. In terms of themes, obviously, death, big one, and just looking at how to really approach it. You can look at it as a big scary thing that's imminent and that is inescapable, or you can look at it as something which is going to happen inevitably, but you're going to live out your life in the best possible way before it takes you. So that's one thing. Obviously, love, another one, and just deciding how to love someone, I suppose. And then tragedy, I suppose, is the other one, just obviously because of the end of the story itself, and seeing how to handle tragedy and the different reactions to it by various individuals. Yeah, that is my review of The Fault in Our Stars. Obviously, I really liked it. Towards the very end, where we have Augustus just deteriorating as a human being, I got very teary-eyed because Green wrote it in such a way that it was very saddening, and we really feel for Hazel Grace as she's going through this. I would kind of like to see him write a companion novel called Imperial Affliction, just as something for readers to kind of enjoy and envelop themselves more into the story of The Fault in Our Stars. I'm really looking forward to the movie now. I really hope that lives up to the book, and so yeah, you'll see that review early June. That's my review. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate it immensely. Make sure to go buy my short story called The Bridge down in the description down here. There will be a link there for you to click on. As always, my good people, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, keep on reading.